On November 21st, 1909, Baylor University celebrated not only its first homecoming, but as John just mentioned, it was the nation's first collegiate homecoming. And this past Monday during Homecoming Chapel, which is a new tradition as part of Homecoming Week here at Baylor, students heard about the history of Baylor homecoming thanks to Dr. Alan Lefevre. He is a part-time lecturer at Truett Seminary and a marvelous historian. And we're glad to be able to bring this particular video to you this morning that was shown in Homecoming Chapel. The history of Baylor homecoming, accompanied by photos from Baylor's Texas collection and Baylor photography. And it's wrapped up by that good old Baylor line by Baylor's award-winning a cappella group, Virtuoso. Take a look.
When we think of home, we often think of a place of fond memories, a place of joy and laughter. Oftentimes when we have failures or when we have successes, it's home where we go to celebrate or get encouragement and support. Some of the deepest relationships we will ever have in our lives are with the siblings and parents that make up our family. The person that we are often develops foundationally in those times when we're at home. In Scripture, the story is told about the prodigal son, who oftentimes we emphasize his leaving and coming home. But what people forget is that once the prodigal left, the father always waited by the gate for his son to return. In 1909, S.P. Brooks was not only thinking about his memories of home, but maybe about the feeling of the prodigal's father waiting for the son to come home as well. Maybe it wasn't time for the father to wait at the gate. Maybe it was time for Baylor to call its children home. This homecoming will be the first of its kind in America. As it approached, Baylor had formed committees. A special issue of the Baylor Lariat was sent out to as many Baylor alumni as they had addresses for. Full-page ads in Texas papers announced the homecoming, with the careful note that they wanted the Baylor family to come home, but there would be no appeal for money at this gathering. As the day approached, some Baylor alumni were so excited for homecoming that they arrived a week early in town. There was a special train that was reserved in North Texas to bring Baylor alumni from that area. When the celebration started, they had a band concert in Carroll Library and a reception for the faculty and students that were there. After the reception was over, they went outside and had the very first homecoming bonfire. It's recorded that as the students danced around the fire, they did a snake dance of some type that they actually recreated the next day at the football game as well. After the bonfire was over, the Baylor gathering moved upstairs to Carroll Chapel, where the main event that night would take place. S.P. Brooks welcomed the Baylor alumni. Looking out in the crowd, he could see that his idea of the family reunion had been a success. When he called them to order, he noted that he was proud to see so many Baylor graduates here. And he said that it didn't matter whether they were businessmen or teachers or farmers, that whatever vocation Baylor graduates had chosen, as long as they were helping better mankind, they were making a contribution to the world. He pointed out also that for all those students who had never missed a day in class, Baylor was welcoming them back. But Also noted that the students who never went to class and when they did hadn't done their homework assignments, Baylor welcomed them back too. Baylor was mother to all of these graduates. Then he introduced George Truett to bring the keynote address at the homecoming chapel. Truett, only less than 20 years before, had been a vital part of raising funds to save Baylor from bankruptcy. At this point in 1909, he had risen to one of the most prominent Baptist preachers in the world. And as he stood to speak to the crowd, he said first, welcoming them, that as the old Greek proverb said, where one Greek is gathered, there is Greece. Noting that where one Baylor graduate is gathered, there too was Baylor. He looked out in the crowd and saw gray hair, saw people that were rich and poor, and noticed that regardless of their wealth, regardless of their age, they were bonded together by being alumni of Baylor University. In his closing remarks, he asked, as Baylor graduates, that we brought honor to Baylor University or shame, whether Baylor was better or worse because we had gone to Baylor University, and closed by saying that it wasn't just important that we be proud of our grandfathers, it was more important that our grandfathers be proud of who we were as Baylor alumni and graduates. The parade took place at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, led as it still is today by the Golden Wave Band. As the band led the processional downtown, it ended in front of Carroll Field, where the game would take place between Baylor University and its arch rival, Texas Christian University. TCU at the time was a crosstown rival, and Baylor and TCU had played each other many times over the years. This game, Baylor would prevail 6-3 before a crowd of 5,000 people. From that day on, homecoming became entrenched as a tradition at Baylor University. Over the years, many of the buildings on campus were dedicated at homecoming so alumni could be a part. There were hard-fought football games, sometimes upsets, sometimes surprising defeats. But probably the most unique football game took place when Topsy, the mascot in 1952, actually stole the penalty flag from a ref after they'd thrown it on Baylor and didn't give it back till after the game was over. In 1958, Pigskin Review became a part of homecoming and is a valued tradition to this day as a way to let alumni see what Sing is all about. The call to come home to Baylor University is the same today as it was in 1909 when S.P. Brooks first issued it. Only instead of taking trains today, many Baylor faithful will drive I-35, and the clogged highways are but a testament to how many Baylor alumni return home to Waco for homecoming. You can't find a hotel within 30 miles of Waco because they're all full of the Baylor family returning home to celebrate time with one another. Baylor freshmen are oftentimes in awe as they see so many people descend on the campus, many of them passing through the halls of their dorm, telling stories with one another about their time at Baylor. Baylor alumni will tell stories about old Burleson Hall when it was a girls' dorm, and people will look around at Minglewood Bowl and talk about how they used to play football games there and pull pranks on one another. Truett looks like a prophet today, for when he said gray hairs nor poverty or riches separate the Baylor family or the Baylor bond, he was correct. One need only to look around the Baylor campus during homecoming to see the older generation passing along stories to the younger generation. In the 1990s, it became fashionable to refer to one's college family as a nation. Yet somehow I think Baylor had it right all those years ago when S.P. Brooks first came up with the idea of homecoming and a family reunion. Because you see, a nation is a geographical area, but a family is a deeper bond. It is about that bond, that Baylor spirit. It's what separates Baylor from other universities, because you see, that Baylor spirit and that family bond that was first celebrated in 1909 continues today as we celebrate and gather together for homecoming at Baylor University.
joy.